Today we're talking all about blogging. Should you have a blog, how to have a blog, maybe why you shouldn't have a blog, and more. So if you have been considering starting a blog or have your own questions about a blog, this is going to be a great episode for you. Welcome to the Up in My Business podcast with me, Lex Lancaster, where you'll get an inside look at all things tech, business, and my life as a physical therapist turned digital operations expert. You'll hear all about my lessons as a business owner, the ins and outs of tech for your business, and more. From SEO, websites, and email marketing to automations, launches, and copywriting, I've got you. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode. I'm super excited to chat with you today about all things blogs. But first, I'm going to do a little recap on my recent trip to California. I had such a great time. So we're going to go through it in two different parts. I'll start in San Diego and then I'll move to LA. So bear with me. It'll be a little bit longer than normal, but there's some fun stuff and fun updates. So in San Diego, Anna Hartman, Movement Rev on Instagram. If you don't follow her already, I highly suggest you do. She invited me out for the second year in a row now to take photos at her mastermind event. It's an in-person meetup for her previous mentorship clients, mentorship cohort, if you will, for her educational content. And it was amazing. So each time I go, so I went to the same event last year and then I went this year. I have learned so much from Anna just by being in the same room as her. And I cannot get over the fact that there are not more people doing what she's doing. So if you're not learning from her yet, you really should. I'll jump into I'm not sure if her course will be closed by the time this episode launches, but if it is, then I highly suggest you at least follow her on Instagram and stay up to date on her upcoming courses after her current one closes. So Anna treated me on, let's see, it would have been Saturday. Yeah, she treated me Saturday night. So it's now been a week. So a week ago, Anna treated my shoulder. So if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I had a volleyball lesson. I'm a PT, I'm not stupid, but I also knew that I wanted to get a lot of reps in. I've had shoulder problems. My right shoulder has been an issue since I was in high school. I was the sole pitcher. So I was the only pitcher on our team for our softball team. And I pitched every single inning of every single game for an entire season. So if you play softball, if you are a pitcher, you understand that that's completely inappropriate. And especially for a young athlete. And I had never gotten proper coaching on pitching because if you are familiar with softball pitching, it's technically, quote unquote, if you're doing it appropriately, it's a natural, quote unquote, motion. It's very different from baseball. So anyway, with that being said, my shoulder got messed up my junior year of high school. Still played volleyball though the next year, you know that, but I did not play softball after that. So anyway, I've had shoulder issues. If I do too much, it definitely comes back. But when I went to that volleyball lesson 3-4 weeks ago, first week of March, so I felt fine throughout the day. However, on Saturday, I had said to Anna, and she actually put me in front of her students and just said, we're going to assess Lex in different positions because I have scoliosis. And Anna is the only provider that I have ever worked with who actually assesses me appropriately according to my scoliosis. So once again, learning from Anna is, one of the best things you can do because you do learn how to assess folks appropriately. So with that being said, she assessed me and my shoulder was just in a weird resting position. If I was, using my shoulder, meaning in internal and external rotation, I was feeling a lot of pressure and I was feeling pain at the end ranges of motion. So I didn't feel great. And my problem was that I was going to be playing volleyball on Sunday. And little did I know, also on Monday. So I basically just asked Anna if she would treat me because I knew that Anna is a freaking magician. So she graciously said yes after an entire day of teaching. She actually treated me at 9:30 at night that night. So anyway, long story short, I wasn't in a crazy amount of pain. It was just, I knew that if I played volleyball the next day, my shoulder was going to hurt afterward. And I really wanted to try to avoid it. So I asked Anna to treat me. So any physical therapist, any chiropractor, anybody who's listening to this who treats human beings for any sort of pain, I want to first say that Anna's assessment and treatment methods are very different from anything that I do in practice and anything that a lot of folks I know do in practice. So she touched my shoulder very minimally, assessed it quickly just to see where I was feeling certain pains, aches, and just to assess my range of motion. And she did determine I had no downward glide of my humerus, which I knew it was rotator cuff related. It did not surprise me, but the treatment itself was not on my shoulder. She treated my diaphragm and my liver. And it wasn't, I know a lot of folks are really familiar with like lymphatic massage. It was not done in that way. She did it in a very manual way of me sitting on the edge of the table, yada, yada. But all of this to say, Anna treated me and I have not had shoulder pain since last Saturday. So it's been amazing, and truly, truly know and believe that the things that she does decreases the treatment time needed for patients. So what I'm saying is that if you're not learning from Anna, I really suggest you do, because you're going to be able to guarantee results for your patients. And she says that, and I full on support and believe that. So yeah, I mean, the treatment was not on my shoulder. My shoulder has felt amazing. And just think about how many patients you have that you could potentially be missing out on a piece that you're not treating and you're not assessing and. So Anna's course, her LTAP course, is open right now. I'm recording this on Saturday, the 25th. I do want to say that it closes on the 26th. So if you missed the LTAP course that Anna runs, then just keep your eye out for her next one. Jump on her wait list, because I believe she does the LTAP 2 times a year, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me. But yeah, so it's great. My shoulder feels amazing. I'm super thankful. Anna, if you listen to this, thank you so much. You are the best. And if you are not learning from her, please go do it. Your patients need you to have this information. And just so you know, her courses are a collection. So she has taken everything she's learned from all of her essentially coursework in the Barral Institute and all of the lymphatic and neural mobilizations and anatomy. Like, she talks so much about the anatomy and honestly breaks down everything super, super well. And she's taken everything that she's learned and put it into one place so that physical therapists, chiropractors, etc., can take an assessment and actually know where to start. Because yes, your shoulder hurts, but if it's not truly your shoulder that your body is wanting you to treat, then we're kind of wasting our time. So her method actually helps you go by what your patient's body is telling you, rather than assuming that you, the provider, are the expert. So really, really respect Anna's work and super thankful that she was able to treat me, because I am feeling fucking fantastic. So anyway, then I went up to LA on Sunday, played volleyball with Shantae. We did, Sunday was basically just, I guess you would call it pickup games. It's 2v2 pickup games. Super fun. And we played probably 5 hours. Amazing. I have the best time. I love playing volleyball, and beach volleyball is very different from what I played. I played indoors, so actually going to the beach to play is very different from being in a gym. And if you've ever done that flip-flop, you understand. And for all my volleyball players, if you are very familiar as an indoor player with using your hands, so setting, on the beach, there's a lot of rules that are very different. So there are things that I do on the beach that I shouldn't do, but still learning the rules, still taking time. It's only my 3rd time playing on the beach, but anyway, I had a great time. On Monday, Shantae surprised me with a volleyball lesson, and her and I went with her coach, Steven of South Bay Volleyball, and we practiced hitting and receiving and all the things. It was amazing. Had so much fun and learned a ton. So the next time I get to play, I am fully confident that the stuff that I learned in that lesson is going to help me immensely, because I was so messed up on my timing, and it was super frustrating to be the person who comes from indoor. And like, I'm not going to tell you I was a D1 athlete, because I wasn't, but also I was pretty good. And to be on a beach and not understand like where I'm messing up and how to play 2v2 and like have actually, success with a swing and getting the ball actually over the net in a swing or when you're swinging, it's hard. It's hard. You're jumping in sand. It's very, very hard. And the whole approach is different. So I'm super pumped. I actually booked another volleyball lesson here in New Hampshire for next Thursday. So going to continue to practice the things that I learned there and just get more reps in. Because truthfully, when you own an online business and you don't really leave your house, you have to kind of find things to go do and leave your house for. So that's what I'm leaving my house for next week. And I'm really excited about it because it's fun. It's super, super fun for me. And I honestly feel like having more of that is going to feel really, really good in my life. So that's really the big updates that I have for you. Just a quick business update. I know that I talked about SEO school in the last episode. I am so close, so close. I have to record at least a couple more before I begin, and it's going to be released. I'm just not about putting out a shitty product. So I mentally need to be in a good place when I record these tutorials and record these educational videos. And quite frankly, I planned to do it before I was traveling, had some stuff come up, and the last thing that I want is to have something be rushed and have it not be as good as I want it to be. So not perfectionism. However, I want it to be good. So I'm not rushing the process. There is no fire. I know people are waiting for it. I know people are DMing me, and I'm so sorry that it's taken me so long to get all of this stuff together. But after all of the feedback that I've had, it's been a year now. I'm updating things. I'm making it more understandable. I promise, it will be worth the wait. And when it finally opens, I really, really will feel good about it. And I think that that's super important. I don't want to record it, have it be shitty, and have to redo it again. So SEO school, if you have been interested, it will be opening up. Please be patient with me. And I really appreciate it, because honestly, I'm excited to open it up, but I just want it to be good. And I want to make sure the videos are recorded in a good fashion. So it will open up shortly. So hang tight. I also want to mention that I'm going to be recording a quick workshop on how to build a Squarespace landing page. So a sales page, if you will. I know a lot of people are thinking like, I want to have a sales page that looks good. I don't know how to design one. I have a sales page that I actually can use as a template for you, and I'm just going to record a quick little workshop on how to actually make the sales page. It'll be follow along. I'll do each section that I typically have in a Squarespace sales page, and then you can just follow that, and then whatever sections you don't need, take them out. Sections you do need, keep them in. Super simple. And I'm looking forward to doing that only because when you purchase that thing, so if I release that and you invest in that, once you make the one landing page, you can use that forever and ever. You would just duplicate the page, change the information on it, call it a day. So I'm excited for that because it will help a lot of people have sales pages that look good. And I do think that that's a huge part of a sales page. Like, it has to look good. And if it's not looking good, I mean, I know that if I go to a sales page and it doesn't look good, I'm raising my eyebrows because I'm trying to give you money to teach me something. And if your sales page is whack, then I'm probably not going to give you money. And I know that other people feel that way. So I want you to have good looking sales pages. I want you to have people who come to your website and are like, oh my God, this is totally for me. It looks so organized, super professional. That's what I want for you. So I want to record this. People said they wanted me to record it, so it will happen. If you have not seen my Instagram post about how to make your own GIF, however you pronounce that, that's also on my Instagram. I'll link it in the show notes as well. So I will make sure that you have a link to that. But if you want to ever make your own GIFs, your tutorial will be below. Please understand that if they deny you because you're not a creator, quote unquote, with Giphy, then I can't do anything about that. Giphy gets to say yes or no to you. And if they say no, it is what it is. You can't change that. So make your GIFs. You can still download them as GIFs and then upload them to your story as like a sticker, but you can't have them on the GIF sticker. So if you search in the GIFs, you won't have them there, but doesn't mean you can't use them. It's just other people can't use them. So still worth it to make them, still super fun. Check that post out. So without further ado, let's talk about blogs. So I received a question about blogging, and I actually received a couple questions about blogging in a poll that I posted, or a question box I posted a couple weeks ago. And I figured I would make one podcast episode about the blogging aspect because I don't want people to have to shuffle around and, take pieces from here and pieces from there. I'd rather just put it in one podcast episode because I also don't want to do a blogging series. So here we are. So we're going to talk about a bunch of things today. Should you start a blog? Why you should start a blog? Why I think that it might be hard to start a blog? What you should not do. And then I'm going to give you some general guidelines because I do think that not having guidelines is really hard. I think that people who have at least a sort of structure will then go forth and at least try. And it eliminates at least one barrier because I do know that someone had asked me like, how long should it be? And what should I write about? So I'm going to help you with that. And it's right at the end, but please don't skip ahead because I want you to also hear the why you should have it because that's going to inform what you're going to write about. So let's answer the burning question or address the elephant in the room, if you will, of like, should you write a blog? Should you have a blog on your website? Should you even bother? The short answer to that is going to be yes. A blog will never be a bad idea, ever. It will never be a bad idea because it's content and content will always be queen. You need content. It just is what it is. And it's the same thing everywhere. So on Instagram, you need content. If you had one post, someone is very unlikely to trust you if you have one post compared to 1,000 posts, especially if you're talking about the same thing for 1,000 posts. So you need content. Blog will never be a bad idea. The long answer though, I understand why you wouldn't want to start one. And I'm going to talk about, my feelings toward blogs, etc. But I understand why you wouldn't want to start one. They're time consuming. It's hard to sit down and do it. You don't really know what the result is. You don't see an immediate result. And I get it. I understand. It's very hard to put content out there. And it's not like people are going to your blog post and putting a thumbs up or hearting it like they do on Instagram or commenting on it always. So I understand like not getting that immediate feedback. It doesn't, give you that dopamine hit. I get it. It's not fun. I will say that when you post a blog, you never know who's reading it because if people aren't liking it or whatever, like you won't know. And it's not always, you can't really account for every single thing. So on Instagram, it's much easier. People like it, people share it, people comment on it, and you know that. And you can see that. Blogs, it's very, very different. So I understand why you wouldn't want to start one. It's very hard when you don't see an immediate ROI. And you don't get that dopamine hit and that love that you get when you post something on Instagram. But we're going to talk about how to address those things and where to go and what my recommendations will be. So let's first talk about why you would want to start a blog. So if you're considering a blog, this is why you might want to start one. My first thing is you're giving away information that is helpful to the general consumer. We all know if you follow Shantae, you know that she says to teach everything you know. Give it all away. With a blog, you're inherently giving away information. I'm not telling you to solve Steve's shoulder pain that he DM'd you about on a blog post. That's not what we're doing. But you can definitely solve some problems, even if that problem is what is knee pain, right? So it's not difficult to give away information in a blog because you can make it super, super general. It does not need to be specific. Now, specific is obviously relative. What I mean by specificity here is like a specific patient case. Can you share patient cases? Sure. But I would just say keeping it general is easier. So just do that. I will also say that you might want to start one because you are able to prove that you are an authority in your field. So if you post written content about a topic, People are going to trust you more inherently because you're able to speak on that topic and write about that topic. If you have multiple posts on that topic and you become a binge-worthy source of a certain type of information, people really trust you. If you've ever been on someone's website and you read one blog, typically you end up on another blog because it's either linked in that one blog or you're like, oh, cool, I really like the way that this person talked. I'm going to look and see what else they have. So just knowing that you can become a binge-worthy source of information is super freaking cool, because if you end up writing about a specific niche, right? So super, super specific. I mean, pregnancy and postpartum, maybe recovery from C-section in a specific sport, so that's a niche field. If you end up writing about super niched content, it's really awesome to be the authority and binge-worthy source. So that might be another reason that you want to write one. You also, I cannot say how amazing, how fun, how easy it is to become a resource list, right? Or have a resource list for patients, clients, etc. The best thing that I've done, and it is on my Instagram, not on my blog, is have a bunch of blog posts that describe tutorials for things, because I can just be like, yeah, cool, I made a post on that. Here it is. And for a blog post for a clinic, or for an online coaching business, if you have written a blog post on something, it's very easy to just drop a link into an email and it'll save you time. You don't need to talk about different, coaching methods that you do and why they're important. You don't have to talk about why you deadlift as you're preparing for a marathon event. Like, you just don't have to talk about that stuff because you have a blog post that already talks about it. Here you go, take a look, whatever. It's nice as well because these blog posts are super shareable. So even if you're just dropping a link into a Facebook, chat or a Facebook group, great. It's a free piece of information for anyone who wants to read it. You look like you're an authority in that field and you're putting a lot of effort into establishing yourself as the authority in that field, because I know how long it takes to write a blog. So it's really, really a good idea if you're able to have that resource list, because it'll save your time, but it'll also show others that you're committed to putting out information about stuff that you care about. So it shows interest. Like, everybody wants to work with someone who is interested in something. And if you're not interested in the topic that you're talking about, but you're treating it, it's kind of like, you're kind of like the mediocre person to go to. I'm not going to treat vestibular and concussion if I don't like it. I'm not going to read about it. I'm not going to write about it. No. So if you're writing about it, it shows that you truly care about that topic. Now, this one is going to be, I'm not going to open up Pandora's box here. I'm going to be very brief, but blogs do help you rank on Google. There's a bunch of stuff that is, important here to consider. There's ways to format your blog. We're not going into that. If you want more on that, you can definitely take SEO school, but I can't give you every information about Google on this podcast episode. So just know that blogging really does help you rank on Google. So super important. When it comes to blogs, we also have to recognize that they're evergreen. So when you post an Instagram post, it's there, it's on the feed for, the day, the couple of weeks or whatever. It's a post on your feed if someone decides to scroll, but it's not like it's just going to pop up. Like, it's not just going to pop up when someone Googles something or when someone searches something in Instagram. Your old posts are not going to show up. Blogs, however, they're evergreen. So if you write a blog on shoulder pain in September of 2016, someone who Googles shoulder pain today in 2023 could still come across your blog from 2016. So that's super powerful. We know that, it's important to have content that is evergreen, because otherwise you're just consistently having to make content, which I'm not going to tell you not to do that. But if you're ranking on Google, it's going to likely be something that you posted years ago. So just understand that if you have a blog, you can get discovered much, much later than when you write it. And that's a huge value of writing blogs, because they are evergreen. They do work for you when you're not working. And it's not something that you actively have to always put effort into. So blogs are super, super evergreen in that way. Lastly, why you might want to start one is that it's easy to take the content that you write in a blog and extrapolate it into different pieces of content. So if you were to write a huge blog on knee pain, I can guarantee you that there's going to be at least 3 to 5 topics within that blog post that you could then make 3 to 5 Instagram posts about. You could then make 1 YouTube video about. Now, this is not me saying to take your entire blog post and put it in one post. I actually don't think that's the way to do it because it's too big. There's too much information. If you're writing blogs effectively and you're writing blogs in a good way, then putting all of the information that you put in one blog into one Instagram post, it's too much information. It truly is too much information. So you need to split that up, but writing that blog first allows you to then extrapolate that information and then you have content. So amazing, right? So just using those blogs to inform content that you might have on Instagram, YouTube, a newsletter, etc. So let's talk about why I personally understand that it may be hard for you to start a blog or you might not want to start one. You don't like writing long form content. I've heard this from so many people. I myself don't like writing long form content. I'm not a storyteller, not in a written way anyway. I just don't like writing it. So I know that it's really hard to sit down and write a piece of long form content if you don't like it. So when someone says to me that they don't want to start a blog because they don't know how to write long form content or they don't want to, cool. I hear you. I totally hear you. I also would invite you to think about the fact that if you start and you try, it's going to get easier. Everything is really difficult in the beginning. Once you get started, you write something, writing the next piece becomes easier. So try to then flip the script on that and just say, I don't like writing long form content, but today I'm going to try. And try it once, and then try it twice, and then try it 3 times. And I promise it will feel easier, just like everything else in life. It's always hard when you start. You also might not have a general structure of a blog in your mind, which means it's really hard to plan out. So if you don't like to write already, or if you do like to write and you just don't know how to actually write something, and you don't have a structure for what a blog should look like, it's going to be hard. Of course it's going to be hard because you want to have that model of what to write in a blog. I got you. We'll talk about it later, but that's a very valid reason. And we always have that writer's block, right? So if you don't have a structure for a blog in your mind that you're going to be following, writer's block is super easy to have because you're just going to be sitting there wondering what's next. Well, what do I write about next? Well, how should I relate these things? How should I even structure the entire blog itself? Should I have an intro? Do I need to have 5 topics? How long should it be? So I get it, and we'll talk about it because that is hard to do if you have no structure. You also might not understand what to focus on. So I have people who have a bunch of different specialties under their clinic. I have people who have businesses with one service. I have people who have businesses with 2 services. I have a ton of folks with just different buckets, if you will. So they just don't know what to write about. They don't know what to focus on. And if you have a billion topics that you could talk about, which one should you start with? So I'm going to go briefly into that later on so you have an idea, but I get that too. It's tough when you don't know where to even begin with the topic choice. So we'll talk about it. And I also understand, I talked about how you don't like to write long form content. If you're someone who is honestly going to be able to say that you like talking more than writing, then consider writing. We're not writing a podcast. Consider starting a podcast. If you like to talk, a podcast hosted anywhere, because I host mine on Buzzsprout and then I put it onto individual episodes on my website. But having individual episodes on your website, it is a blog post. So it is inherently a blog post on the back end, like structure wise. So start talking. Do a podcast first and focus on that. It's still content. I'm not going to tell you it's going to replace a blog. Totally not true. But if you start to do a podcast and you put a podcast, page on your website, you can then become an authority for the topics that you're talking about with a podcast, just like you do a blog. And when you're ready to start writing a blog, awesome, start writing blog posts. So for what it's worth, podcasts are also great and an option. Now, I'm going to tell you what I don't want you to do, and then we're going to go through general guidelines. So going to try to keep it quick so that this episode isn't a bazillion hours long, but things that you don't want to do. I don't want you to write a blog and then post a link to that blog in Instagram if you can help it. So I had mentioned that if you write a blog, you can then take that blog, break it up into 3 to 4 pieces, 5 pieces, and make individual posts about those pieces. Amazing. That's perfect, because the thing is people are not on Instagram to navigate away from Instagram. You want to keep them on the platform. People, think about yourself. Do you oftentimes say like, oh, cool, this person wrote a blog post, I'm going to go to their bio and then go read their post? Not often. I think I've done it for very, very few people over the years and years I've been on Instagram. So I would say that if you have a blog post that you have written, don't just post a blog square, if you will, and say like, go check out my post, I just posted it. Instead, take what is in the post and give them tangible takeaways on Instagram. You don't even have to write about the blog post if you don't want to. Like, don't even mention it. Just mention that here's some, tangible things that I am talking about. Here's some wins for you. Second thing you should not do. Do not take your Instagram posts and just copy and paste them into blogs on your website. Make sure you elaborate on them a little bit, because the thing is Instagram posts are very short. They're 2,200 characters. Typically, they're much less than 500 words. We'll talk about the word count in a minute, but they're typically 250 words. You need more words in a blog post. So oftentimes I've never spoke to someone who says like, oh my God, I could never write more. You always, always, always want to write more, and use your blog as a way to do that. Use your blog as a way to finally have the space in order to write what you want to write. You're not limited by character count. It's actually amazing because you can then add photos, videos, do whatever you want. So I recommend taking your Instagram posts and just elaborate on them a little bit. Make them more fun, make them more interesting, add more content, add more takeaways, etc. My last do not add fluff. So fluff is not cool. I like eating fluff on peanut butter sandwiches. That's delicious, but don't add fluff into your blog. No one wants to read fluff. No one enjoys reading fluff, and we can tell when it's fluff. So just keep your blog super to the point, don't add fluff just to add length. And that would be a super big thing to keep in mind when you're elaborating on those Instagram posts. Take information and add to it in a way that makes sense, in a way that fits. So you're not just adding fluff to those posts. Okay, so now that we've covered the do nots, let's talk about guidelines, because I had said I understand that the guidelines are what can throw you off and might prevent you from starting a blog post at all. So let's talk about the things that I would recommend you do as a new blog writer. And I when I say new, my SEO, anybody who listens to this who has been in SEO school, you're going to be saying, but yes, 1000% do every single thing that I told you, because I can't go into that much detail in this podcast episode. I need people to start somewhere, and giving you this general layout is going to help so much more than just saying all of the crazy stuff that I say in SEO school and making you do 2,000 things when you are just starting out with your blog. So I'm going to base this off of someone who is a new blog writer, or someone who has been trying to write blogs but might just be a little bit confused, and you want my general guidelines for blogs. So number one, and there's 9 things here. So number 1, write blog posts with an intro, a body, and a conclusion. And inside your body, you should be focusing on 3 to 5 main topics. So that's a general guideline for a layout. So if you were to do just like we used to do in high school, you would write out paper guidelines, write out a guideline for your blog post. Intro, body, conclusion, and focus on 3 to 5 main topics within your body. Number 2, you want to aim for at least 500 words. Once again, everybody in SEO school is going to be like, but Lex, that's not long enough. Yes, 1000%. I want to tell you to have 1,000, 2,000 word posts. But the thing is, if you're someone who already doesn't like to write, I'm not going to tell you that having 1,000 words is going to be the place to start, because it's going to be difficult. I want you to have success with this. I want you to start somewhere. 500 word posts are not bad. 500 word posts will get you somewhere. I want you to start there. Start with 500, open up a Word doc, open up Google Docs. You have a word counter. get those 500 word posts. And I sound like in like high school, they used to say, make sure you have 1,000 words. Like, I understand that feels kind of, it almost feels like a barrier in a way, because now you're trying to make a goal of this many words. What I mean by this and why I say there is a word amount that's ideal is because Google says this. So Google puts these terms, if you will, on posts, and it says like you should have X, Y, and Z. So this is coming right from Google of how many words should your post be? What do Google results look like? And how many words should you have? So I want you to aim for at least 500 when you're starting out. If you are a more advanced writer, if you like to write and you have no fret, I'm like, okay, I can get 500 words. That's easy. Add more. Go for 1,000. Go for 1,500. Just add that content. And once again, I'm going to go back to the do nots. Don't add fluff. We're not just adding words to add words. It's silly. Don't do that. Make sure everything makes sense and make sure things are written in a way that is understandable. And that'll take us right to the next point. Your blog post shouldn't be written like a scientific research paper. It should be engaging. It should be fun. People don't want to read scientific literature. I mean, very, very few people want to read scientific literature. Don't get me wrong. It's important. I get it. But for a blog, people don't want to read stuff like that. Dry as hell. It should be fun. It should have videos. It should have photos. It should have content that you want to read. I mean, make it engaging, right? So if you think about that, and I want to make sure I give you this structure because it's super, super important to do this. When you're reading something, you are going to be more engaged if it's broken up into components. I always tell people to avoid text walls. So what that means is you don't want a bunch of text or paragraphs, if you will, with 7 to 8 sentences in them. It's too big. It's too much. Break it up so you have 1 to 2 sentences, maybe 3 sentences in a paragraph, and then you have a new paragraph. Put things in bullet points. Put things in numbered lists. Do all that stuff. Separate out that content. The best thing you can do is make your blog skimmable. Now, you might be saying, okay, cool, like skimmable, so they're not going to read the whole thing. Like, why the hell am I writing a blog post if they're not going to read the whole thing? People will skim things because they want to see, like, what does this have for me? Does it answer my question? And then they'll go back and read that section. And then if you're lucky, they'll go back and read the whole thing. Human behavior is that people skim things. So address that. Make your stuff skimmable. If you make it a text wall, you stand 0 chance. So make sure you're not writing text walls. Give yourself some open space, a couple sentences per paragraph. Bulleted lists, numbered lists, all are huge. Next, give your audience tangible takeaways. So you have to write to your consumer. So are you writing about knee pain or are you writing about, pelvic health in a CrossFit gym? Like, you can definitely give people takeaways in each of those things. People want to know what it is. They want to know the results of things. They want to know how things work. They want to know the difference between you and someone else. All these things that they want to know, address them. Address them in a blog post. I can guarantee, if you just take a moment, you can pause this episode if you want, I can guarantee that you can write down at least 5 questions that you were asked in your clinic today or yesterday or this week. 5 questions. That's all. I can literally probably list out 20 questions that I was asked almost weekly, on a weekly basis by patients. And I would love to just be like, here's a whole resource for you on that. So just understand, like, any of the questions that you're being asked in a clinic, they're also probably Googling that, or someone is probably Googling that. So to have a resource, to have your response that you already have for them written somewhere, amazing. That's a tangible takeaway. Now, like I said before, I'm not asking you to solve personal problems. I'm not asking you to solve world hunger on these blog posts, but I'm just saying that make sure people can do something with the information. So we're not giving it fluff. We're not just making it, a blog post that has barely any content in it, nothing real. We're not teasing people with content. What you want to do is just give them something that they can take away from that post, even if it's just, what is knee pain? Cool. Love it. Next, for my people who don't know what to focus on, okay, I want you to focus on content buckets. So I'm going to give you one example and then you can extrapolate it to your specific situation. If you have a clinic who has pelvic health and orthopedics, then write content that fits in those 2 buckets, pelvic health or orthopedics. If you have an online coaching business and you coach, online business coaching, but then you also do like tech help, then you have 2 different types of blog content. You have 2 buckets. People get exhausted when they try to relate the buckets to each other. Don't do it. You can relate orthopedics to pelvic health, 1000%. Yes, absolutely. But I'm also not writing my blog posts to focus on both audiences all the time. It's just not a thing. So I would focus on the content buckets themselves and making sure that you're writing posts that are fitting into those buckets. Okay, so that's for my people that don't know what to focus on. And then once you have those content buckets established, ortho, pelvic health, I also can pretty much guarantee that you can make a list underneath each of those buckets about diagnoses. You can write about questions that you have. You can write about any sort of treatments that you have. So lots of lists underneath those content buckets that you can then write about. Number 6 is tough because there are so many different things out there, but I'm going to tell you the straight up answer. Your blog should be hosted on your website. So I think people have this idea that like a blogging website is different than your website. No. If you're on Squarespace, if you're on WordPress, if you're on Wix, I don't care where you are, there's a blogging feature on your website. Keep your blog on your website because you want your blog to be associated with your domain name. So www.lexlancaster.com, if I write a blog post, it's going to be associated with www.lexlancaster.com, right? If I were to create another blog site, I would have to do like lexlancasterblog.com, but then that's not going to help my SEO. So bottom line, put your blog on your existing website. If you don't have a website yet, please get a website. I will do an episode about websites and why you need one at some point here, but just understand that I wouldn't start a blog before you have a baseline website. So just put your blog on your website. Don't have a separate host for a blog. All right, we've got three more, and then a quick recap, and then we're done. So hang with me. Number 7, don't forget, jeepers creepers. Don't be afraid to reference other professionals and other bodies of work in your blog post because Google freaking loves that. So if I'm just going to use Anna Hartman as an example. As a PT, if I wrote a blog post about visceral manipulation and I wrote a blog post about listening to the patient's body and assessment and designing treatment off what the patient's body talks about, I'm going to talk about Anna. I learned this from Movement Rev, movementrev.com. Here's a blog post that Anna wrote about all of this stuff. Here's Anna's Instagram. Link to things. Don't be afraid to link to other people's stuff. I think there's this idea that if you link to other people's stuff, they're going to leave your website and go talk to someone else. 1000%. And that's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing. They're going to keep researching and they're going to say, cool, they learned from this person. That's awesome. I would love to have them, treat me because they learned from this authoritative person. So it's a great thing to link to other people, and Google loves it because it shows Google that you're doing your research. If you are in the health and wellness sphere, you are held to a different standard. So you have to put information online that is valid and it's true. And if you do not, or if Google thinks you're not, it's not going to let your content rank on websites. Or on Google. It's not going to let your content be shown because it wants to make sure that it's putting information in front of people that is true. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I've seen a lot of BS online. Yeah, 1000%. I'm not telling you that Google has this filter and it's like, this is fake and this is real. What I'm telling you is that it's really good, not only for the people who are reading your blog to see that you are learning from the masters of that craft, or you took this information and you're applying it because you learned it from this other course. It's not only good for that, but it's good for Google in a way that Google sees that you're a collaborative person and you're taking other content and learning from it. So link away. Don't be afraid to do that. Just have it open up in a new window, right? New window. So people can still have your blog post in one tab and they'll open up the other tab in a new window. That's all you need to do. Okay. 8 and 9 are really quick. 8, quality will always trump quantity. Have a better blog post and not a longer blog post. Those are two different things. So quality is way more important than quantity will ever be. I tell you to aim for 500 to 1,000 words, right? As we talked about. But if you are at 400 words and you absolutely positively cannot add anything more valuable, then don't just add stuff to add stuff. Is it still short? Yes, it is. Try to come up with a different topic to insert into that blog post so that you can have more words rather than just putting fluff into the entire post so that it's just literally not quality. It's just not quality content. I want you to have quality content. I want you to aim for quality content. I don't want you to have content that is full of fluff. Because if you've read fluffy content, you know what I mean by this. So make sure you don't do it. And number 9 is a warning. It's a red tape, I guess I want to say, as far as blog writing, is that this takes time. I have people who have blog posts that they write in 2014 and they're just starting to rank today. I have people who wrote blog posts in 2022 and are ranking pretty high in 2023. I have people who have written a blog post and cannot be found on Google still. You need to understand that Google's very smart. Google's not a stupid machine. It's a $1 billion company. A trillion? Who knows? It's one of those things where you cannot guarantee that you're going to start ranking right away. But what I can tell you is that the more content you have, the more authority you have, the better you're going to be able to rank. So don't just say, well, I'm going to write a blog post and then hopefully I rank for it. And if I don't rank for it, well, I guess it's not working. That's so not true. And I don't want you to be in that mindset when you're starting to write things, because it's going to be really hard. It's going to feel like you're failing. So don't take that mindset on if you can help it. Instead, what I want you to think about when you're starting to write these blogs is that you're taking one step forward every single time that you write a blog post. I don't care if you ever look at the stats. Don't even bother looking at stats. What I want for you to do is just create content and try your best to keep going. So create the content, keep creating content, and then see what happens. People get wrapped up in all the stats. They get wrapped up in the fact that they're not ranking for certain things. Instead, publish the blog post, share it wherever the heck you can, break down that blog post and make it into Instagram posts, and just keep creating content, because content will always, always, always be queen. And it's never a bad idea to just keep creating and keep being an informational source, giving it all away, making sure you're an authoritative figure and a binge-worthy resource for your patients, your clients, other professionals, whatever it may be. So to wrap up, I'm not going to go through everything I just talked about because that was a long episode, and I figured it would be because I told you I could have had 3 different podcast episodes here, but I think that that's going to get too confusing. So here we are. So should you start a blog? If you want to, yeah, absolutely. A blog will never be a bad idea. But for my people who are like, I don't really know if I want to, consider a podcast maybe, or try to take my general guidelines and just start and see if it gets easier. I would challenge you to write 1 to 2 posts a month. I have people who want to write a blog post a week when they're first starting out, and I'm like, that sounds terrible. Don't do that. Start with 1 to 2 a month, and then maybe you can increase later on and just have it for a goal for 6 months and then see what happens. And if it gets easier, cool. If you sit down to write it and every single time you decide you hate it, you need to decide if hating it and getting through it is worth it in order to develop that content. Or you can say, whatever, I'm not going to do it because I hate it. I don't like it. It's never going to be fun for me. I don't see any results from it. That's fine. I'm not going to tell you you're required to write a blog post or have a blog at all. I just want you to try to play the game, because if you don't ever try to play that game, you're never going to win that game. So do your best, use the guidelines, and reach out to me if you have questions. And with that, thank you so much for listening to this. I hope you got a decent, guideline list of things that you can start doing and have you're in a good place, if you will, to start writing a blog if you're wanting one, or maybe just making a decision of whether or not you want to put that in your to-dos for the rest of this year or next year. So thank you so much for being here. I will catch you next time.